If you know anything about the Black Plague, you'll know it was pretty devastating. But how did it even start? Historically, the Black Plague originated back from Central Asia, where there was an annoying little bacteria called Yersinia pestis. Yersinia pestis tends to really only affect rats and other rodents, and guess what rodents attract? Fleas! Fleas would bite rats and then carry the disease, but since the plague tends to kill things immediately, packs of rats would begin dropping dead. These fleas were forced to fly off and find other warm-body animals that weren't dead. However, fleas can live for months and like to live in clothes and shipments, so sometime around 1347, infected rats along with the fleas were accidentally transported by a trade ship in the Mediterranean, which landed in Italy. Remember when I said fleas were attracted to warm-body animals that weren't dead? Well, it turns out humans are both of those things. The ship was specifically importing grain, and Europe loved grain, basically everywhere needed it. Well, the fleas also loved it, as they hid in grain shipments, and when the grain was exported all across Europe, so were the fleas in the Black Plague. The plague also spread through humans too, but physicians back in the day had all different theories and assumptions. The most popular theory came from a famous French physician named Guy de Chauliac. He believed that infected patients would cough up water droplets, and their neighbors would accidentally inhale these droplets, getting them infected as well. He called the spread through humans the pneumonic plague, while spread through other animals like the rodents and fleas was called the bubonic plague.
The Black Plague sucked to have, and I probably shouldn't have to tell you that. The French guy I was talking about, de Chauliac, took note of infected victims and found that symptoms commonly included a high fever, coughing up blood, and expected death within 3 days. Another form of the disease also included rashes and carbuncles. And if you don't know what carbuncles are, then good. They're disgusting. They're kind of like skin lumps. Victims were famously known to have swollen lymph nodes, which were basically large bumps under your skin, and were commonly found around the neck or groin. Getting rid of these is extremely uncomfortable and distressing, as you may expect, as doctors would attempt to open the lymph nodes and drain them. However, it was really pointless, as having these show up basically meant you were going to die soon. This is because you wouldn't know you had the plague, as the symptoms wouldn't show up until 5 to 7 days after being infected. Once you do know, congrats, you're now in living hell.
If you had a time machine and traveled back to 14th century Europe for some reason, and gave a British peasant a Mountain Dew, they would probably die on the spot. This is an exaggeration, but I'm trying to emphasize how terrible medication was in the past. The Black Plague was extremely fatal, and medical practices back in the day probably did nothing but kill you faster. Doctors would commonly give patients prayers, but since that didn't really do much, they had switched to other unethical methods. And what better way to cure the plague by bloodletting? Doctors thought the smart thing to do would be making you bleed so the infected bacteria would leave your body, whether it was cutting you open or using leeches. However, this also did nothing and would make patients die faster. Some even believed that making a patient sweat excessively or purposely making them vomit would get rid of the plague. Along with trying to treat the plague, there were also methods to try and contain it. Of course, there was the method of quarantine, but there were also records of people killing cats and dogs. They were commonly found to be infected. Some believed that the plague was spread through bad air and would burn sulfur to purify it. However, during the shoveling times, people felt the need to put the blame on other things, specifically Jewish people. But in reality, they just wanted an excuse to round up them and kill them.